Hello, this is Brandon P.T. Davis, theatrical scenic designer, and in this Vectorworks tutorial, I'm going to show you the basics of 3D modeling. To start the tutorial, I have drawn a 2 foot by 2 foot rectangle sitting from center at 0, 0 on the XY axis. Many of the most commonly used 3D modeling tools you will find in the Model menu tab. I'm going to first select our rectangle in the top plan view and go to the Model menu tab and select Extrude. You can also do this by hitting Control or Command E. Now that I've hit Control E, you see the X and Y is at 2 foot by 2 foot, which can be modified in the menu. And the extrusion I'm going to set to 4 feet. By pressing OK, in the top plan view, it appears nothing has happened. But I can toggle into a 3D view, and you'll see that our rectangle has been extruded to be 4 feet tall. If you look in the Object Info palette, you can see the X and Y are both equal to 2 feet. The extrude is 4 foot, 0, and then the bottom Z axis is sitting on 0 on the plane. We can modify this by adding 2 feet. And now our rectangle is above the Z plane by 2 feet. In the next example of a simple extrude, I have drawn a rectangle in the top plan view that is 4 feet by 12 feet. If I change the plane from layer plane to screen plane and change our view from top plane to front view, I can now extrude the object by 3 inches. The object is now sitting on the X and Y axis and extruded by the Y axis. If I go back to top plan view, you can see it is a rectangle. In this example, I'm going to show you how to add a solid. I have taken the previous rectangle and duplicated it and rotated it by 90 degrees. Currently, it is 2 separate objects. If I click on both objects by holding Shift and go to Model, Add Solids, or hotkey Control-Alt-A, now the object is one object. You can also access the Add Solid function by selecting both objects, hitting right-click, and Add Solid. The next basic 3D function I'm going to show you is Subtract Solid. We can do this by first drawing this rectangle at 24 by 24. And extruding it by 1 inch. Let's make that 24 inches. Selecting both objects, and you can go to Model, Subtract Solid, or Control-Alt-S, or you can select both objects and select Subtract Solid. Now notice this dialog has popped up. We have options now. We select the dark orange and press OK. It will subtract the object from the bottom, like so. Or I can go to Subtract Solid and move so this box here is in the dark orange selection and press OK. And it'll select everything around it. The next basic function I'm going to show you, I'm going to first go to our 3D modeling toolkit which I will show later. But here I can select the sphere tool. I'm going to go from the center and expand it out. I'm going to go to front view. I'm going to make sure that our sphere is on 0, the z-plane. Then I'm going to select the two objects, go to Model, Intersect Object, or Control-Alt-I. I can also additionally go to Intersect Solid by right-clicking. What you'll notice is that everything that was outside of the sphere has now been subtracted. Everything on the inside is what remains. Keep in mind that with both functions, we can also select and go to Edit Solid, and we can go and adjust our previous iteration. The next function I want to share with you is the section solid function. So we'll first start off by getting our friendly sphere. We're going to make it radius about 2 inches. And now I'm going to color this red. Next, I'm going to use the polyline tool. And I'm just going to draw kind of a organic curve. I think that's good. I'll move it just so. One of the interesting things with Vectorworks is we can actually extrude a line. So I'm going to hit Control or Command E and extrude this 4 inches. Go to our front view. I'm going to move the I'm going to move the sphere up 2 inches, so it sets at 0, 0, so +2. And I'm going to color our polyline extrude green color. Now I'm back in the 3D mode. If I hit Shift C, that's how I toggle through the 3D modes. And I'm going to select both objects. I'm going to right click and go to Model. Right click and go to Section Solid. We can also find the section solid in the model panel. And now it says that the selection, so if I look at the arrows, it says highlight the previous selection object to use as your sectioning surface. So I want the polyline that we extruded to be the section surface. And I want the sphere to be the object that we're sectioning. So if I click the arrow, now the sphere is the selection surface. It's dark orange. And if I select the next, it's dark orange on our polyline, which is what we want. So I'll press OK. So now you'll see that everything on one side of the polyline has been subtracted. If I wanted to reverse the direction of that, I could just go to the Object Info palette, hit Reverse Direction, so I can get either side. Another cool feature is I can select Use Section Color. So if I select that, the section that we colored green, the polyline, is now the face of our sphere. The next function I'm going to share with you is the multiple extrude function. To start this demonstration, I have multiple rectangles on the page. I have one rectangle that has another rectangle inside at center, another rectangle with a rectangle on edge, and then this rectangle is going to, I'll show you what we're going to do with this to make it a pyramid. So the first thing I'm going to do, so I'll just kind of swing us into a 3D view by hitting Shift C. I'm going to select both rectangles. I'm going to go to the Model tool, and we see here the multiple extrude. So extrude is just for one shape. Multiple extrude is when you have multiple shapes. You can also use hotkey Control E to access this function. And So basically the object that is on top, which was the smaller rectangle, is still on top, and the object that was on the bottom is on the bottom. And we can control how much we extrude this. So I could change the 6 inches to 4 inches. It's actually going to be a little bit lower after we press OK. And here we are. So we have the first rectangle on the bottom, the next rectangle on the top. If I double click, I can change the order. So I'll just right click and go to send to front, press OK. Now, since I've split the smaller rectangle on the bottom and the larger rectangle on top, it's still the same height. The rectangle is just functioning differently. So I'm just going to flip this back for our example. Show you just how we can use the same function. So I go to Model and Extrude, Multiple Extrude. So we'll keep it the same 4 inches. But I think you can see how it reacts. It's just going to extrude the secondary shape to the bottom shape. Now to make a pyramid shape, I'm going to take this rectangle. I'm going to hit 0 to get our 2D Lotus tool. I'll place it right here in the center of this rectangle. I'm going to select both. And I'll go to Model and then Multiple Extrude. And keep it at 4 inches and press OK. So now we have 3 examples of a multiple extrude. So the next model mini function I'm going to show you is called Tapered Extrude, which is similar to multiple extrude, except for you have a little bit more control. So if I go to Model, Tapered Extrude, I'm going to set the height to, say, 5 inches, and we'll taper to 12. Just as a demonstration, and I'll fly us into a 3D mode. So if I select the object, we're going to look at the object info palette to really illustrate how this works. So if I change the height, basically, I'll make it a little bit more dramatic, take it to 1 foot. So what's happened here is we have the base shape, and we selected the angle of 12 degrees. So this is angled in at 12 degrees. And then we can change the height, which we just illustrated. If I wanted to change the angle, I could easily change the angle to 25 degrees. And now we have a pyramid again. But because the height exceeds, it ends at the height here. But what I could do is I could make this 4 inches. And now we have a flat top to our tapered extrude. Next, I'm going to show you Model and Sweep. I have drawn a polyline to illustrate how the sweep function works. So currently I'm in top plan view. I want to be in front view. So I need to remember to change the screen mode. So if I go to if I go to Model, Sweep, I'm just going to press OK. So it sweeps around 360 degrees, create this shape. If I go to the Object Info palette, I can show a few things. So first, we have the sweep is 360 degrees. We can actually easily change that to 180 degrees for half a sweep. I'll change this back to 360. The other thing we can adjust is the segments. So right now it says 2.81 degrees. If I change this to 45 degrees, it's going to give us multiple sides. If I go into top plan to go back to 2.81 degrees. It looks like a circle. Change it to 45 degrees, and it becomes a multi-sided object. You can also adjust the height easily with this, so you can change the height. Now it's taller, it's just stretched out our polyline. We can also change the radius, so now it's blown up our polyline quite a bit. I'll go back, show you another thing we can do. So if I go into the plan view, back to the front, I can add a 2D lotus and change the center of the object. So now it's wider because we've changed where the center is with the 2D lotus. As a bonus, I want to show you that with this 3D object and all 3D objects, I can still select and go to our basic palette and select the split knife tool. And I'll kind of come from the center, holding shift. And now I have two sides of our object. And you can do this with all of the 3D tools. You can use the knife tool to split things up as needed. The last model function I'm going to show you is the Extrude Along Path tool. So currently I have a polyline that I've extruded to 12 feet tall. So imagine this is a wall. Now I'm going to take this trim profile. I'll just move it here for now. I'm going to hit 5 to create another polyline. I'm going to trace our wall. So this will be our path. But before we can do that, let me show you best practice is go copy the x-axis. So I'm just going to right click and copy that. Then I'm going to use the offset tool. So with O, offset, I'm going to insert the measurement and divide it by 2. Offset that by half the width, because the Extrude Along Path tool is going to extrude from the center of the object. So I'm going to duplicate. I'll show you first the best method. So we go to Model, Extrude Along Path, which is right here, Control Alt X. You can also select both objects and go to Model, Extrude Along Path. So the dark orange line is the path that we're going to extrude along, and then the light orange is the thing we're extruding with. So I'm going to press OK. If I go to a front view, we have to raise our path, and I'll swivel around. So one of the things we've noticed is that we were backwards with our path. So this is common. What we could do is go to the path, press OK, and I'm going to reverse the direction of our line and exit. So now our path is going the correct way, and it looks like a piece of crown molding. In the first example, when we trace the outside, if you remember, I said that it's going to, the path is from the center of the object, not the edge. So if I select both and go to Model, Extrude Along Path, what you'll notice is now our crown molding, still reversed, is in the center of our wall. So you have to make sure, like I showed you before, that you offset to be the center of the molding. A couple other functions of the Extrude Along Path. If I select both a profile and a path, go to right click, Model, Extrude Along Path, there's the uniform scale. By default it's on 1. We could change this to 2. So we need to make sure that our path is selected. And what you'll notice when I press OK is the initial profile is here, but because we scaled it by 2, it's twice as big on the end. You can modify these elements in the object info palettes. We could change it from exponential, which means that it exponentially changes, or we can change it back to uniform and modify it back to 1. So this concludes the tutorial on basic modeling techniques. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.